All right, today we're going to be talking about solving inequalities. An inequality is basically the same exact thing as an equation, we just have a different symbol instead of an equal sign. The symbol allows us to graph the number on a number line, and it also has a small difference in meaning. So, one thing to remember about inequality signs is the symbol is always open to the bigger number. So whichever one has the larger value, that one is going to have the bigger side of the inequality sign. Let's take a look at this first symbol. The first symbol means less than. So that means that the number in front of the symbol is going to be smaller than the number behind it. Common phrases that you're going to see in relation to this symbol are fewer than, below, under, and beneath. All of these are words you would see as keywords in a word problem when trying to solve with inequalities. Let's take a look at the example we're given for this symbol. We have 2x is less than 10. So in order to solve this, we take and look for the variable, and that is next to the 2. When a number and a variable are touching, that means that they're multiplying, so we're going to do the inverse or the opposite, and that means to divide. We're going to divide by 2. The 2's cancel out, and we get x is less than 10 divided by 2, which gives us x is less than 5. With equations, we don't necessarily graph our answers, but with inequalities, we do. So there are some rules for this. Whenever you have an inequality symbol that does not have a line underneath it, which we'll talk about a little bit later, you're going to have an open circle. So I would put an open circle around my answer, which is 5, on my number line, and then I would draw an arrow going the rest of the way of the number line, going to the left, the same direction as my inequality sign. Let's talk about that second symbol. This is the exact opposite of the first symbol. It represents the word greater than. Common words you'll see for greater than is more than, above, and exceed. All of these are keywords and word problems that you will see when you need to use a greater than symbol in your equation. Let's take a look at that example that they give us. They have x plus 5 is greater than 4. In order to solve this one, we need to do the inverse operation of plus 5, which is subtract 5 on both sides. The original 5's cancel, and you're left with x is less than 4 minus 5, which gives you x is less than negative 1. Again, because you're using you have a smaller number and you're subtracting a negative, or you're subtracting a bigger number from it, that means that you're going to get a negative number. When we go over to the number line, this also does not have a line underneath, so it's not an equal to one. So it's going to have an open circle, and it's going to point to the right. So we're going to put an open circle around negative 1 on our number line. That's lower than 0. And we're going to draw a line that goes all the way to the end of the number line, going to the right. All right, let's look at that next symbol. This looks very similar to our less than symbol, but this one represents less than or equal to. It has what looks like part of an equal sign in it, so it also represents that it could be that number exactly or a number smaller than what you're talking about. Common phrases for this one are no more than, a maximum of, at most, and not to exceed. The most common ones you're going to see is no more than, maximum, and less than or equal to. Let's take a look at that example for this one. We have 5x is less than or equal to 15. So in order to solve this, we see that the 5 and the x are touching, and whenever a number and a variable are touching, that means that they're multiplying. In order to get rid of that 5, we're going to have to do the inverse or the opposite, which means to divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 5. The original 5 cancels out, and we're left with x is less than or equal to 15 divided by 5. And when I solve this, I get x is less than or equal to 3. When we're looking at the graph for this one, there is a difference. Instead of having an open circle, we are going to have a closed circle. The reason why is because that could also include the number 3 as a possible answer because of the equal sign part of it, the less than or equal to. So we're going to draw a closed circle on 3, and we're going to draw an arrow that goes all the way down the number line to the left, the same direction as your inequality sign. On this very last symbol, this one represents greater than or equal to. This is very similar to the greater than sign, but it can also include the number that you find as a possible answer choice. Phrases that you would hear for this one are no less than, minimum of, at least, and not below. The most common ones you'll hear is no less than, minimum, and at least in word problems. Those are the ones that are used most commonly. Not below is a little extra. All right, let's go ahead and look at that last example for this one. We have x minus 3 is greater than or equal to negative 2. We have a minus 3, so our inverse would be to add 3 on both sides of the symbol. The original 3's cancel, and that gives us x is greater than or equal to negative 2 plus 3. So be mindful of when you're working with negatives. If I start at a negative number and I'm going towards the positive side, we're either going to end up with a negative or go to the positive as well. So with this example, we would get x is greater than or equal to 1. Our negative number is smaller, so they would lose a battle, and our positive number would win by 1. When completing this graph, you're also going to use a closed circle because of the or equal to part, because of that line underneath the symbol. That tells us that it could also equal 1 and anything bigger than 1. This one's going to point right, just like the symbol itself. So we're going to put that closed circle on 1 on our number line, and then draw that line all the way to the end of the number line going towards the right. Now that we've been introduced to what the inequalities symbols are, we need to know how to utilize them also. So when you're solving inequalities, it's exactly like solving equations. There's no difference except for the fact that you have a different symbol between one side and the other. You still need to use inverse operations or the opposite operation, and you need to solve for the variable. So every time we're trying to get our variable by itself, but we keep the inequality symbol and don't replace it with an equal sign. When you divide or multiply by a negative number, the inequality is going to switch directions. So this is one of the differences between equations and inequalities, is that when you're dividing or multiplying by a negative number, your sign is going to flip around. So if it was less than, it's now going to be greater than. I hope this helps us gain some more understanding of inequalities so we are able to go and effectively solve them and see them in word problems from here on out.